say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing this distinguished alumnus to our campus. Help us listen intently so that we may learn from his experiences. In a special way, please bless the men and women who have served and are serving in our armed forces. Keep us ever mindful that the freedoms that we enjoy today have come at a human cost. Let us also remember Brother Simeon, a man who dedicated his whole life to the students of Priory. May he rest in peace. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen. St. Benedict,
Pray for us.
Captain Esan Simon graduated from Priory in 1990. How this came to be can only be described as an American dream saga. Esan's father, Irving Simon, was born in Georgetown, Guyana. After high school, he left for college in England. There he joined the Royal Navy in 1966 and was commissioned a lieutenant, becoming the first black man to ever attain that rank in British history. It was also in England that Irving met a Jamaican woman named Dorothy Neufeld, who had also been studying at a British university. They married and started a family with the birth of the first two sons, Carrie and Sasha, both of whom also attended Priory. Following his service in the British Navy, Irving brought his young family back to his home country in Guyana, where Esan was born in 1972. 3 years later, Irving immigrated to the United States, where he lived and worked in New York City. In 1977, the rest of the Simon family moved from Guyana to the United States, St. Louis specifically, where it grew to include one more son, Johanse, yet another Priory alumnus. Having been exposed to the English educational system while in Great Britain, Irving and Dorothy were delighted to discover that an English community of monks had set up a school with English roots in St. Louis. After their initial visit, they immediately fell in love with Priory and knew this was the place for their sons and the Simon family. Following the footsteps of his older brothers, Carrie and Sasha, Esan thrived in every way at Priory. Not only was Esan an outstanding student, but he also excelled in 3 varsity sports. Esan earned all-district and all-ABC League recognition as a running back on the 1989 district championship football team, was a 2-time state qualifier in wrestling, and became a track and field all-state champion in the 110-meter high hurdles and the 300-meter intermediate hurdles. He was a state record holder in the 110-meter high hurdles for nearly 15 years. Perhaps most importantly, though, Esan became a leader within the school and was known for his modest, self-deprecating personality and unparalleled optimism. From Priory, Esan matriculated to Harvard University, where he earned his bachelor's degree in biology. in 1994 while winning varsity letters in indoor and outdoor track and football. Esan entered Emory University Medical School on a U.S. Navy scholarship, graduating in 1998. He was commissioned a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy, did a pediatric internship at the Naval Medical College in Portsmouth, Virginia, completed an arduous 6-month stint at the U.S. Navy Flight Surgery School in Pensacola, Florida. Lieutenant Simon served in multiple flight surgeon billets, including a deployment in the Persian Gulf aboard the aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman, CVN-75. Following this, Dr. Simon executed an inter-service transfer to the U.S. Public Health Service with assignment to the U.S. Coast Guard, where he eventually was promoted to the rank of captain. After a family medicine residency at the Mayo Clinic, he served in a variety of operational and clinical roles, including those of a flight surgeon and medical director at numerous Coast Guard air stations and clinics. Captain Simon was then selected to be the medical director of the U.S. Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut. It was during that post that he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, an aggressive form of blood cancer. While going through treatment at Johns Hopkins University, Captain Simon ended his 26-year service to his country in Washington, D.C. as the senior flight surgeon, aeromedical educator for the United States Coast Guard pilots and aircrew flying in all Coast Guard aviation platforms. Captain Simon officially retired from the U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Public Health Service this summer in a military ceremony at the Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C., where his Priory track coach, Rick Suarez, was one of the guest speakers. Captain Simon now resides in Potomac, Maryland, with his wife, Valerie, of 21 years, who was a swim coach at the Bullis School, the same school his 3 children, Elliot 16, Olivia 14, and Evan 12, currently attend. We'll now have the questions that the advisory groups came up with, as read by the student council. So, student council, take it away.
All right, so the first question we have here is, what was Priory like 34 years ago?
Thanks for the question. Oh, first, before I answer, I just wanted to say what an honor it is to be here. Father Cuthbert, the entire Priory faculty, thank you so much for the gracious invite. Mr. Finan for reaching out and a few months ago and asking me to come. Truly just humbled and honored to be here. And I haven't been to St. Louis in 10 years, so a lot of things are different, and just really excited to be here. So thank you all, and thanks to the great student council members for the work you did preparing this event here this morning. So thank you very much. So yeah, your first question, what was it like 34 years ago? Well, first of all, I got a whole bunch of Priory 1990 right here in front. Did I get a hoop? Here we go, guys. So these are actually some of my classmates. Thank you all for coming out here this morning. I started Priory in the 1980s, and started in 7th grade and finished up in 1990. When I think about what it was like back then, the things that come to mind for me are community is certainly one of the first ones. We graduated 41 boys, so we all definitely knew each other as a tight-knit in terms of knowing each other. We played sports together, we supported each other through that. So the community is definitely, I think, for me personally, one of the first things that comes to mind. And not just the community in my classmates, but the community from some of the faculty who are still here, who I've seen here just this morning, including Coach Finan and Coach Suarez and others. So much so that almost 40 years later, here's Coach Suarez, at my retirement ceremony just a couple of months ago, because that's how much of that community meant to me personally, and how much those individuals poured in to me, whether it's faculty members, my friends who were also fellow military, Bruce Timmy Allen, also in the Navy, another classmate. All these different individuals, and I'm giving names, can't give all the names, but some of these represent what that community meant to me. So that's definitely a huge part of what I think of when I think about Priory. So I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions.
Why did you choose to attend Harvard from Priory?
Well, that's a really simple answer. So I never once thought about Harvard. It just simply didn't even cross my mind. I had no intention of going there. I certainly didn't grow up thinking that I would go to Harvard. It didn't seem to be, in my mind, a place that I even considered. Until Coach Tony Finan, this is literally what happened. He said, "Esan, I think you should apply to Harvard." And one of the things about that, the deadline had already passed to apply. And he said, "Hey, well, the football coach is coming through St. Louis. I want you to meet him, Coach Fannin." And the deadline had passed. I said, "Sure, Coach. If that's what you think, I'll do it." And you know one of the things that represented to me when folks who put their trust in me for what they saw in me, I was always kind of a listener. And, I would take advice, whether it's Coach Suarez on the track, football, and that's why I applied, because Coach Finan said apply. I always kind of thought people knew more than I did, whether it's some of these teachers and mentors and all that here at Priory or throughout my military career. So when people would speak into me, I took note. I listened. Even when it was things that I had no idea, and there's so many examples of that. I just gave you the one when Coach Finan encouraged me to apply, and I could just weave that straight through my 26 years in the military, just seeking out mentors, listening to people, taking advice from individuals, and that really has set me in a path of opportunities that I had no idea existed, things that I didn't even know. And quite honestly, people would believe in me, things that I didn't even believe in myself. I didn't think I was the type of person who could go to Harvard, and I said I never considered it. If it wasn't for Coach Finan, I never would have applied. And that's exactly how I ended up at Harvard. Yeah.
How would you say your Priory education prepared you for Harvard's academics?
Sure. So, thinking about that, we lived in Manchester. So there are a couple of reasons I bring that up. So during the summers, one of the things that I would do, didn't have a car, we didn't really have a lot of money, so no surprise, we're an immigrant family, so we didn't have family here, we didn't have sort of resources, and thank you, Priory, for the scholarships. So I used to ride my bike in the summer from our house to the weight room. And that took about 50 minutes. And then when I'd work out for a couple hours, ride the bike back, that was another 50 minutes. But I also mowed lawns, so I'd mow the lawns before I rode the bike, and we did the job and all that. And the reason I bring that up is, and that was just in summer. And then during the school year, 3 sports, football in the fall, wrestling in the winter, track. And the reason I bring all those up is one, and I didn't know this was going on. I just did what I did, I would work out, I ride the bike. But what it taught is that I had to balance things out. So if you have a football game, or if you have a student council meeting, or if you have a volunteer activity, well, you still have to get your schoolwork done, and you still have to do the sports stuff. Maybe you still have things outside of school and life. So all this. Without even knowing it made me balance things because you just kind of had to. So the opportunity to divvy things up that were your responsibility in a way that you still had to perform in all those different areas. And what it taught was just sort of how to manage life, how to manage academics. Because, by the way, you still had tests, you still had a track meet. We would go to the state championship, we would have to get on the bus and leave for a few days. But you still had to do all those other things. You still had to take tests when you came back, and so you couldn't, drop things off. So one of the first things that I think about with your question is just all those opportunities and experiences kind of forced me to figure out how to manage. Now that was really important, especially in medical school, because that was not easy. It was very difficult, a lot of high volume of classwork and all that. So managing. Additionally, the education here obviously is outstanding, whether it's the monks, whether it's the civilian faculty, and they challenged us. It wasn't easy, and certainly I would not classify Harvard and Emory as easy, but having this solid foundation, having the preparation, having the ability to manage multiple different things simultaneously, and be as effective as possible for you. Now, for me, I never really looked at what other people were doing, because there's people who are smarter than me, there are people who are more athletic than me, so that never bothered me. I just kind of focused on what I needed to do, and I just did it, and that prepared me for future challenges, so thanks for that.
Thank you. How important were Priory's Benedictine values in your formation as a person during and after Priory?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when you look at the, sort of the core values and the mission of Priory, now you can look at the website and see what exactly it is, but I'm just going to put it in my own words in response to your question. Priory to me is about developing young men of character to go forth, not just educationally, succeed in life, but a variety of avenues of life. Again, not just, getting straight A's or going to some, big school, but developing core values, developing moral foundation, so that when you go out into the community, when you go out, whether it's school, whether it's, someday you all are going to be fathers and you all are going to be husbands, and, someday you all are going to be community leaders and, doing things in your community, doing things around the country, doing things around the world. What you want are people of solid moral character, who have integrity, who do the right thing. Priory teaches it. I didn't have this knowledge going through it, but almost 40 years removed from it, so I'm sort of looking back now. But that moral caliber, biblical foundation, a faith-based foundation. Not just to go out and get straight A's and go to some big school, but to do all those other things in life, to be fathers to your daughters and sons. And a lot of you all are talking freshmen here, and these things are way down the road. But those building blocks start here, and they've been going on for years. From the junior school all throughout until you graduate, and impacting society and others for the benefit of just to do it, not to get anything from it, because it's the right thing to do. So that's sort of a nutshell when I think about your question there.
How were you able to handle 3 sports seasons with the academic load at Harvard?
Yeah, it touched on this a little bit in the earlier question, and to me, the biggest thing, well, there's a lot of different things, but one of them comes down to that time management. And being able to effectively do what you need to do within a period of time that you need to get it done. I was always, I guess, kind of serious with the books, and then I was also serious with the athletics. Didn't really do a lot of other stuff in terms of wasn't really a party guy. Just kind of studied. I enjoyed it, and I also found that when you get into something that you enjoy, we had the great opening from the choir here. Those guys probably enjoy singing. Guess what? It sounds great. That was an awesome rendition. There's going to be people here who are thespians. We're in the fine theater. Probably enjoy, being a thespian and being in those plays. And guess what? You do a great job at it. There's going to be people here on stage and who are athletes and musicians, and so when you line up with the things that you enjoy, you tend to thrive in those things. Now, there's always going to be things that you have to do that you don't particularly enjoy, but guess what? You got to do them. Hey, you want to be a lawyer? Got to go to law school. You got to take your LSAT. Be a doctor? You got to take your MCAT. You got to go to medical school. It's going to be some hard times. If you're a professional athlete, you got to get in the gym and hit. So there's going to be things that you just have to do. And certainly in the military, we take orders, and there's, sometimes you go places where you don't necessarily particularly want to go, but you go, and in doing that, that grows you as an individual, grows you as a person, and then goes from there.
So how did your life as an athlete at Priory and Harvard prepare you for the future aspects of your life?
Yeah, great question. So, one of the first thing that I think about with that question is my aviation medicine background. And just to explain what exactly a flight surgeon is, so in my 26 years, the majority of my career was what's called a military flight surgeon. Most people have no idea what that is. Even people in the military don't know what that is. And this is directly related to the question, but I have to explain what a flight surgeon is so you understand how I'm going to answer the question. A flight surgeon is basically a primary care doctor for military pilots and their crew. Now, to become a flight surgeon, for example, in the Navy, it's a 6-month course, pretty strenuous. There was physical stuff. We learned aviation, like aerodynamics, weather, navigation, things that had nothing to do with medicine. Fixing planes, flying planes, got to fly planes. We learned medicine that was specific to aviation, and we did all that so we could go and serve and fly with the pilots. So we'd actually fly in aircraft, but we'd also take care of them on the ground. So just like how you all go to your pediatricians, your orthopedic doctors, and all these other things, a military pilot would come to us, a flight surgeon, because we specialize in aviation medicine. So the reason I gave all that background is, when you look at a military squadron or a military unit, there's so many similarities to a football team, a soccer team, or a choir. Why is that? You're united for a common purpose. For example, military aviation, the purpose is that squadron is flying. They have missions that they have to execute. They have orders that they have to take care of. But everybody's on the same page. Football team, trying to win. One ball, trying to advance the ball down the field. You got 11 guys trying to stop you. So many similarities. So starting from the sport analogy, that is like a direct parallel to a military unit, an aviation squadron. I deployed on a carrier for 6 months, and that is your family. There is no 6 months at sea. It's tight knit. It's pretty close. You're seeing each other every day. You got to figure things out. Hey, not everybody's getting along, but you got to sort through that. Just like how you sort through when you're out on the wrestling team, you got teammates, or the football team, you got teammates. You have to sort through how are we going to, as a unit, execute what we need to do. We want to win in the sport arena, in the operational arena. We have a mission that we have to execute. So that, to me, with your question, direct parallel is with the military and the sports and all those sorts of things.
What was the most difficult part about attending Emory School?
That's pretty easy. It was hard. And I'm not being facetious about it. So medical school was certainly, and how I did it, I went to college and then went right to medical school after that. And a couple of things to think about. So what I discovered is every advancement, whether it's, there's freshmen in the room here. All right, you're doing freshman work. Well, when you get to be a junior, you're taking APs and more APs, and the senior, well, the work as a junior is more than the work you did as a freshman. Their teachers are expecting more of you, and there's larger quantity of work. Okay, then you graduate. Well, then when you get to college, freshman year, they're expecting more of you than when you're a senior. Even though at your senior year in high school, hey, maybe 5 APs and all these things. So as you advance on, the requirements, the workload, whatever fields you all will end up in, they just increase, right? It's really important and helpful if you learn the principles early on, so that when you have the increased burden of responsibility, you can be successful as you advance on. So medical school, Harvard was not easy, a lot of work and all that. I found that you had to think more as opposed to, you just had to think on a higher level, to do the assignments and all that. And then medical school, not only was it the thinking, but also the quantity of work, which was just at times kind of overwhelming, and fire hose kind of thing. You're up all night studying, and you're taking tests, and so there's the quantity, there's the expectation because it's a higher level of expectation, and then there's also what in my own sort of words, there's sort of a diversity of complete involvement that you need to excel. And here's what I mean by that. So, for example, internship, after 4 years of medical school, they can do internship. So, internship, I was working up to 100 hours a week because back then we didn't have restrictions on work hours. So, my low was 80 hours and the high was 100 hours. Anywhere from 80 to 100 hours a week. So, you have the physical exhaustion that you have to deal with. That also leads into mental exhaustion because if you're up, for doing on call all night and you've got patients that you're getting all night, and you're tired. So you have to be sort of physically capable, you have to be mentally capable, and you have to be academically capable as well. You might be not tired, but if you have no idea how to take care of a patient because you didn't study, that's not good, and it's your responsibility. So it's multiple areas of performance excellence in multiple dimensions that you had to perform at in medical school, in internship, in residency. And then as you advance on, the requirements just continue to be sort of cumulatively added. But if you get the principles down now, you'll be ready for things that you don't even know are coming your way.
What led you to use your medical degree to serve in the military?
Yeah, great question. So as Coach Fine introduced, I was born in a different country, and but there was for me, it's actually pretty simple. So many things to me are just simple, hard work and this and that, just real simple things. But to your question, I simply just wanted to serve my country and see the world. That's why I joined the Navy, and I wanted to do a whole 20 years. 20 years is sort of traditionally considered a career in the military for different reasons. So you do at least 20, some people do more, some people do less. But I want to do 20 years. So the reason I want to do it was just to serve my country and see the world. I viewed it as an opportunity of service, but also as an opportunity to go and do things that I never would have had the opportunity to do if it weren't for the military. And military is not for everybody. By the way, this is not a recruiting. This is not a recruiting pitch at all. I'm not a recruiter, but just giving you my own personal experience. Because the military is definitely not for everybody. And when I say opportunities, so for example, I got to fly jets off aircraft carrier. That's an experience that not too many people have the opportunity to do. Got to live on a military base. The Coast Guard Academy is a college. Most people have heard of the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy, West Point, which is the Army's military academy. But the Coast Guard has its own college, and it's in New London, Connecticut. Our family actually lived on the campus of the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. Even if you had like millions of dollars and you said, I want to live on the campus of the Coast Guard, it's not happening because you have to be active duty. There's only 4 homes plus the admiral's house. So that's it. There's 5 people, there's 5 families that live there. Once in a lifetime opportunity. Our kids would, walk to the football games right out of our house. The helicopters would land right on the field in front of our house when they had aviation open house. Didn't call it open house, but that's kind of what it was. When the president came to speak at graduation, when we lived in the academy, we just walked out our front door and walked down the football field, and Air Force, all the pomp and circumstance and all that sort of thing, and walk back home. So, the reason I bring all those up is just giving you examples of some of the opportunities, which I didn't even know existed, when I was on the early end of my career, because, I never would have been. I didn't even know about the Coast Guard. I never heard of the Coast Guard. Group of Missouri, not a lot of Coast Guard here. But those are just examples of opportunities that I've been privileged to be part of. And then the family now, because of my activity time, the family has gotten to be part of those opportunities as well. So the opportunity to do things, go places, and then in service to the country. And that's not only why I joined, 30 years ago, because I did 26 years and I joined about 4 years before I went on active duty. But that's also why I stayed. Because, you don't have to stay. If you do your time, you get out.
Switching more to like the service aspect, what were the most challenging aspects of being a flight surgeon on an aircraft carrier, and were you ever in areas of danger?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a good question. So a couple of things. When you talk about operations in the military, and when you say operations, that basically means the military doing its job. So I'm not an operator, I'm a support person as a physician. But just like how you all, if you're twist an ankle on the field, you need to go to a doctor, or you go to a physical therapist, or, the military members, they're out doing their operations, they need medical support as well, overseas, on carriers in different countries and all. So there's a whole system of support who we as non-operators just provide different support to the people who are doing the military mission. So that was my job as a physician to provide the support. Yeah. Oh yeah. So what I was getting to was the challenging part. So in providing the support, you also might find yourself in difficult situations. For me personally, one of the most challenging situations, we were off the carrier, and they were doing bombing training, and unfortunately the bomb ended on the wrong end, where there were people, like our own people, and several people, and that was very difficult to deal with. And when those things happen, a flight surgeon's role is to go and find out, well, what human factors contributed to this unfortunate situation where there's loss of life, right? Not only loss of life, but injury. So that was a very long process. It took months of sorting through all those things and talking to people, and those things are very difficult and challenging to deal with. And then your other part of the question of being in danger as well. When I was on the carrier, we were patrolling the no-fly zone over Iraq. Now, what we would do, the aircraft would launch from the aircraft carrier. I wasn't, part of the operation doing that. There were people who didn't want us there, and they would, let you know that. And so the guys were, getting, shot at, in the aircraft. So those things happen, and that's part of the military challenge.
How has service in the military changed you as a person?
So, when I think of that question, the first thing that I think about, several years ago, one of the big things in the military is teaching about leadership, and leadership is so important in the military because of the work that the military does and the challenging environments that the military is in and the things that it's called on to do. So at the Coast Guard Leadership Development Center, it's literally a center just to teach people about leadership. And there's all kinds of courses and training. So I was there for a week, and we were tasked with developing our own leadership philosophy. And from that, and so it's a rare opportunity where you're cut away from work and just focus on a particular thing, which is your own professional development, which is something I love in the military, the opportunity for professional development. And from that, I came up with my own leadership philosophy, which is pretty simple, but it really speaks directly to your question about how does the military shape me? And I came up with 4 things, which they're not particularly earth-shattering, but it was important to me, and it kind of was my ethos. It kind of drove me. And it wasn't until I took the time to think about it and actually write it down that actually sort of solidified what that was. And that really speaks to your question. And the 4 things were very simple. Do the right thing. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Do your job well. And take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And from that, I can really say that everything that I've done just emanates from those 4 things.
Thank you. How did your life experiences throughout all of that prepare you to take on cancer?
Yeah. So, there's a whole lot of things we can talk about with going through cancer. And without a doubt, in a room this size, there's going to be people who've had family members, whether it's cancer or some other significant illness, maybe unfortunate people have lost loved ones in this room. And people have gone through other things that just in this room that are incredibly difficult, traumatic, and painful. You know, whether it's maybe a parent separation, all these different things that people go through. And for me, the personal struggle, challenge of going through cancer was, I would say, pretty much top of the list of the most difficult things to go through. Fortunately, now earlier we were talking about having building blocks so that when adversity or challenging times come, then you have got the building blocks to navigate. Whether it was Priory, whether it was learning, developing my faith through here, through Bible studies in college, whether it was people supporting me, all throughout and encouraging. I had years of sort of being built up in a certain way to be ready. I don't know if ready is the right word. I don't think you can ever be ready for certain things. You just have to deal with certain things. You know, who's ready to deal with their parents' divorce? Who's ready to deal with maybe a sibling died? Who's ready to deal with, my uncle's got cancer? I don't think you're ever ready for those things, but there's certain things in life that build you up to the point where when you do come up with that adversity, it helps you to navigate. Now, I also found, so building blocks is one key part there, but second part, with cancer in particular, when I couldn't even literally pick up a fork because I was just so wiped out from chemo, or I couldn't literally walk, not up steps, I couldn't walk up a step, like one step, or when I had to just sleep for 11 hours a night and still take 2-3 hour naps a day because I was just so wiped out. Even being prepared by life throughout, there's a point in time where there's just nothing you can do because maybe you're emotionally exhausted, maybe you're physically exhausted. And by the way, if you ever get to those points, maybe you're having suicidal thoughts. And, hey, we all go get help. Fortunately, I had a lot of people who could pour into me when I couldn't even do the things that I needed to do to keep me whole. And there's certain things that I needed to do to keep me whole, but I got to the point where I couldn't even do those. But particularly guys from my Bible studies over the years, folks who I've known for decades would reach out, encourage, pray for me, support me. So it got to a point where I couldn't even do things for myself, but fortunately there was a community of folks around me that helped me get through it.
Thanks so much. To end off, what final words of wisdom do you want to leave Priory students with today?
Sure, great question. Boy, it's time went by fast. Sorry, I got a couple of questions here. Two things that I would say. One is I shared this Bible verse at my retirement ceremony. It's Colossians 4:5. It's very simple. Make the most of every opportunity. Don't have time to get into all the complexities of that, but I would encourage you all to make the most of every opportunity. And second thing, I'm going to share this. Somebody sent me this email, and I'm just going to read 2 sentences from it. And this is the second point that I wanted to say. Thanks in part, and so this is somebody sent me this email recently, who I knew from the late 1980s. So almost 34 years later. Thanks in part to you, my name is now on the athletics wall, something I bet every coach in Priory never thought would ever happen when they saw me my freshman year. I don't think I ever would have pushed myself to get to that level if it wasn't for you. And it wasn't just the effort to become better that I looked up to you for, it was how you treated people. No one ever appeared beneath you, whether it was a freshman who couldn't hurdle properly, that being me, or someone you barely knew. Everyone felt special because you focused solely on that person when you were talking to them. So the first thing I did when I got that email, I had to look up who it was, because I didn't know, and I had no idea what he was talking about. And literally, and the reason I bring that up is you have no idea the people who you might be influencing on an everyday basis just by doing what you do. And honestly, I still don't know all the things that impacted this individual. Yes, she works here at Priory, so, and gave Santa Cruz. I asked him if I could read his email, he said it was okay. So, but I really did not know all the things that impacted him so much that 34 years later, he's writing an email. I'm like, what did I do? I have no idea. So, whoever you're impacting, make the most of every opportunity and pour into others, because you have no idea what impact you might be making in the future.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Simon for accepting my invitation. 42 years here. We love all the students, but there's some special ones. And he's a special one. Father Cuthbert and things up here.
Captain Simon, I just want to thank you again on behalf of us all for being here, for sharing your story, but also for teaching us, once again, some pretty fundamental but hard to practice truths. There's a sign up there, which I'm often reminded by alumni that it's there. I forget about it all the time, but it's a quote from Scripture. It says, "To whom much has been given, of him much will be required." And sometimes we forget that all the gifts and talents and opportunities we've been given, we're supposed to receive those with gratitude, as you've told us today. But more so, we have a responsibility to pursue them and to make beautiful, true, and good things in this world with them. And then also, as you remind us, you can't do it alone. It has to happen in community. And you will never know just how profound your impact is until that moment someone tells you. So thank you for your service, thank you for being here, and thank you for inspiring us today.
Thank you.
On behalf of us all, I have the gift, and let's give him another.
Oh, big time.
So, for those who are just joining us on the video, I was just telling the class that Brother Simeon taught me calligraphy in the 1980s, and I write calligraphy all the time. Now, I know you're going to grade me, and it's not going to be as excellent as yours, because the last time he taught me was in the 1980s.
Wow. What is that?
Oh, that's my name, Esan. That's my first name.
I think your line's like so straight.
And my middle name is Odell, so O. And the capital S is I always enjoyed writing capital S.
Oh, that is the most fun. He's lucky. If you've got a capital S in your name, you'll love it next year.
So Esan O. Simon. And I can't remember the script that was.
Milesian Gothic.
There you go. But I kind of, it's a little bit of a mix, I guess.
You've made your own.
Yeah.
In a good way.
And that's just what I do. So,
Wow.
So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.